let me tell you right now, The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck Part 11 is one of the best ones. And I think it's sort of because, first of all, hey, how we doing? I think because The Life of Scrooge often, I think, comes in two categories for the most part. One is sort of the adventure, and the other is sort of the more character-driven stuff. And story that has an impact on Scrooge and sort of expresses him better as a character. For the most part, I think Scrooge McDuck has been mostly the same over the years. With I think the biggest departure from his character, I would say, would to an extent be the 2017 cartoon. But even then, I also remember from the 87 version, there was stories like The Golden Fleece, which was another adaptation of a Karl Barks story. But that one showed Scrooge going in a slightly different direction as a character. There's never really been a lot of impetus to sort of show his character as a negative. Throughout most of the books, you're supposed to view Scrooge as sort of a generally good person, and that was sort of the direction it took. This story here, in my opinion, helps show exactly what you can do with any character if you're willing to put in the work. So this is the Empire Builder from Calisota. So our story opens up at Duckburg, and this has taken place a while after the events of the invader of Fort Duckburg, where Scrooge has come to Duckburg and he has his money bin built. What he's been doing since then is pretty much just traveling around, building up the empire, while his sisters Hortense and Matilda stay in the money bin, which is the central hub for everything. They're managing the day-to-day affairs of the business as they happen. And so one day Scrooge gets back, and we sort of get an idea of exactly what's been going on. So he's back right now to sort of check to see how he's doing on this roster that's been made, which is every rich person in the world. And we see that he's passed William Randolph Hearst, that leads 73 other people to pass. But Hortense points out that he's been getting richer and richer, yes, but he's getting meaner and ornier, and that's all he does. To which Scrooge responds, that's the name of the game. And he points, and when he goes to see how things are going in the money bin, at this point we're at the 8-foot at the 8-foot mark, and the money bin's always been interesting in terms of how this has always been presented. In most Ducktales works, the gauge is never shown, but it's also never been that low. There was one, I think it was Yuppie Ducks, where the money bin was actually at its lowest, and it was supposed to be implied this way it was supposed to be, and I hate that. The money bin should always at least be at the halfway mark. But anyway, it's nice to see this is going on. Hortense points out that he should probably stay and manage the empire himself, and someone else do the globetrotting. To which Scrooge says, no, I'm the only one with the experience and the know-how to go out there and make this work. To which Hortense doesn't believe, with Matilda just sort of being there. And while he's going over the figures, which also implies that Scrooge comes in every now and then to effectively check their work. And then he sees this random woman like, who are you? And she says she's Emily Quackfaster, the new secretary. And Quackfaster is sort of a mainstay in the Duck universe. But she doesn't always go by the name Quackfaster. There's Featherby, who you probably saw in the DuckTales animated movie Treasure of the Lost Lamp, as well as various other DuckTales episodes. In multiple current Duck comics, as well as DuckTales 2017 reboot. But coming back to this, Scrooge is freaking out because in his mind, there is no way he can make a profit with such limitless extravagance. And it's weird that he would view this one person as an extravagance, but also the fact that Hortense has hired an entire office staff. And as she points out, there's no way the two of us can manage this stupid bin all by themselves. And truth be told, if all that was going in was making sure the money was coming in, sure, they could probably handle it, but Scrooge is building a world empire, and there's more than likely different figures coming in, different numbers, all of this that two people can't possibly do, but it also speaks to the fact that because they've been able to manage this far, that they are very capable. But that's besides the point. As Hortense throws coffee at his face to wake him up, says, like, you know what, we're not going to wait here anymore. Next time you go traipsing around the globe, we're coming with you. And we can leave Quackmore in charge as the office manager. And Scrooge finally says, fine, whatever. So they go to Africa. And this is where the story kicks in and goes down a very dark and interesting path. as Scrooge comes to a shady part of darkest Africa, and we see Scrooge is bargaining with a village chief for the Quack Quack tribe's Kachunga diamond mine. And what he offers in exchange for the diamond mine is a quarter. And I don't think I need to tell any of you that this is a bit shady, a bit wrong. Let's just call it wrong. To trade someone not even 1% of what it's worth here. I mean, there's profit, and then there's you just cheated somebody. And this is interesting because this is going on while Scrooge is saying you have to see what a genius your big brother is. And when he's trying to figure out exactly is there anything else going on from Chief Booger Boo Boo, yeah, whatever. They find out about other territory in Voodoo Village, and this is when Hortense calls him out on the fact that 25 cents for a diamond mine. That's not your usual practice, to which Scrooge just goes, hey, he was happy, I was happy, and this leads to the beginning of the falling out between Scrooge and his siblings, where Hortense points out that you've turned mean enough to justify anything. And Matilda goes with honesty is the best policy, and Scrooge's like, no, spare me. All right, it took me 20 years to strike it rich just because I always played it square. He's developed new methods now, and this is where we really see exactly where he's coming from here. To the idea that it took him 20 years, but if you've been with us for any measurement of time, or with this series, you may recall certain events like the Invader of Copper Hill story, where he had to give away his, the richest hill on earth, or the Kimberley diamond mine from Terror of the Transvaal, where, he decided to, make it on his own. But all of those, because he chose to take that higher road, it's taken him longer. Now he's like, no, I'm going to do exactly what everyone else has done and screw the rules. So he goes up and says, open up, I'm coming in, and they throw a watermelon at him. And then he says, you know what? I'll get people to tear this place down if you don't let me in, and that grants him an audience, where he meets with the village chief, Fula Zula. And Scrooge has sort of forgotten all propriety. He's still coming to this person as if thinking he's this sort of savage creature that I can just, sort of manipulate and say, hey, look, I offer you special treatment, here's for your land, here's a symbol of my chief, Abe Lincoln. To which Fula Zula's like, okay, rude much. Then says you know what, let's not, and I'll show you the future. Says you know what, I see two sisters who are very sad about the wretch their brother has become because he's about to get kicked out of this village, to which Scrooge just doubles down and just starts kicking the bones and everything around, to which he gets seized, kicked out of the village, and effectively made a joke of. And this is where Scrooge's temper hits the boiling point, and he goes off and he goes down to the trades office, and he gets a bunch of guys down here where they ultimately will burn and tear down this African village. And what's important to note is the look on Scrooge's face. He is very angry. This is not just a matter of they don't want to do business. It's a matter of pride now. Even the little devil horns he's got on his head, and the fact that he's just biting his sister's heads off. Matilda is honestly the most gentle soul in the Duck universe, from my experience. And the fact he says, I don't need any freeloading relatives underfoot. Go back to the camp and stay out of my way. And, it brings Matilda to tears. And so I want to talk about the narration here. So on a dark day in darkest Africa, Scrooge McDuck commits the only dishonest deed of his entire life, one that would haunt him for years to come. And he's enjoying it. He's like, that's it, boys, run him down, run him into the jungle. Teach him that nobody mocks Scrooge McDuck. He's enjoying every minute of it. Nobody makes a fool out of me. Nobody humiliates a McDuck in front of his kin. And as his sisters walk away with Matilda in tears, Hortense points out, this is a dark day for the clan McDuck. And Scrooge, again, is still very confident, very almost proud of himself. And he says, now he'll probably sell his village. But after realizing that there may be some troubles, he decides to go in disguise. And he ultimately tricks Fula Zula into selling his land to him. And this is sort of it. He's sort of reached the epitome of dishonesty here. You could say he's becoming like Flintheart Glomgold in a lot of ways. It's interesting to see how easy it is to fall. And I think that's a really good point about character. That, not all of the average person, not really this unbreakable bastion of moral character. Sometimes it's very easy to make. It reminds me of Batman. Batman has a lot of rules, and he's very clear that if he starts to break one of those rules, it'll be easy for him to justify breaking another one. And I think Scrooge sort of came to the way of, like, a little dishonesty here won't hurt. But now look what he's done. He's assured a village. He's lied and cheated his way into getting what he wanted. And he's become something I don't think he ever thought he would ever be. And we see this come to a head when he goes to the camp and he finds that his sisters have left and says, like, look, we get it. We get that you've had a hard, arduous journey from the moment you left home at the age of 13 to try to make it. And you fought the world on its own terms and won, but it's changed you. And it's turned you into something really bad. And we just can't be a part of that. So if you decide to change your ways, feel free to join us at Duckburg. Love your sisters. And I love this scene right here. This is how a book becomes something more. This is how characters become something more than they could ever be. This moment of introspection with Scrooge. And Ducktales tried this before with the character Bubba the Cave Duck, where Scrooge talks to himself. But it's done better because he's just made a huge, huge lapse in judgment. And he takes out his number one dime and says, why should I have to be the only honest man in this really messed up world? Even his inspiration, the number one dime, came to him as a result of some bum cheating him with a worthless American coin. And then he's met by the voice of his younger self, the one who got that, says, that's why I promised to make my fortune square, to prove I'm better than those people. And he just shies it away, like, well, why didn't I just take shortcuts like everyone else? And then he's met by himself from the Klondike, the one that made the success. He says, because it's only through the honest and hard work that I earned my way in life. And he still avoids it. It's like, it's not fair. Who died and left me in charge of morals? And the one person he can't shove out of his mind shows up. 10 centuries of McDucks, that's who. We passed on you the best reason to be honest, self-respect. It's his father. And he says, like, you once held honesty as your highest ideal. And what did you promise me on the very night I left you? And he realized that I'd always be true to myself. And Scrooge just realized that he's made a huge mistake. He has to make everything right, not just with his sisters, but with Fula Zula. If there's any way he can fix it, he has to try. But the damage has been done, and Fula Zula has placed a zombie curse on him. And I do love Fula Zula's design. I love the eyes. I love how imposing he is. I love that everyone in Africa has 5 fingers. That is something you don't quite notice, but they do. And Bombi the zombie looks a lot like he could be the ghost of Christmas future. He really does. He looks like he's the divine punishment. An almost Grim Reaper-like character. And Scrooge is only able to avoid Bombi the zombie by effectively putting back on his regular clothes, putting his glasses back on, unruffling his whiskers so he no longer looks like, well, Donald, it looks like Scrooge. So Bombi is a bit confused and he walks off. So Scrooge would go back home right now, but he's found a business opportunity, which is the fact that the Orient Express goes through continental Europe, and it's also cheaper than buying fare at Duckburg. So he goes, he does some business there, and then he realizes, hey, I can go to the North Pole, and he meets Robert Perry, and he wants to fund the expedition. And he, Perry's like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. Like, who do you represent? Like, no, I represent me. I represent big business. I want to buy the North Pole. So that way anyone that looks at a compass has to pay me, and the tax I'll put on children's letters to Santa. Remember, kids, this is Scrooge after he's realized he's gone too far. He's just like, you know what? I'm not going to cheat people, but there's no law that says I can't do that. It's just sort of wrong. Perry says, like, dude, you got to get out. And Scrooge sort of argues, but then is met with Bombi the zombie again, and he tries to run away from him, but Bombi falls into a crevice in the eye. So we're good there. And then Scrooge gets an invitation to meet Tsar Nicholas II, and it's effectively a buyout because of, revolutions coming. So he buys a bunch of Fabergé eggs, finds out about a rare candy-striped ruby. He goes to get that, and is like, okay, I can go home now. Then he meets Bombi the zombie again, this time on the way to to America on a little ship you may have heard called the Titanic. And yeah, Scrooge is indirectly responsible for the sinking of the Titanic. So we think, okay, is Scrooge going to go home now? No. He's heard of another business venture that he wants to go do, and this leads him to South America, where he chases El Dorado and the Gilded Man. and, and then we also see how Scrooge develops his ability to swim through money when he's pushed off of a cliff onto one of his money trains because he has money trains. And it turns out the reason he can is because all those years of bathing and burrowing through his money had taught him some instinctive trick. That he could dive through the hard metal coins as if they were liquid, and he was like a porpoise. And it doesn't quite explain it, but the way they explain it, that he could dive through the hard metal coins, it's almost like he's bending it around him. He's a cash bender. Congratulations. Before there was Avatar: The Last Airbender, there was Scrooge McDuck. But then there was also moments when he engaged in the pearl trade, using trained cormorants as divers, offering them, hey, I'll give you this, you go get me that, and we're good. And then one day on a tiny island in the South Pacific, Scrooge meets, Bombi the Zombie again. And this time, there's only one way out, which is to get this chief to put a curse on him. In exchange, though, he has to trade the candy-strapped ruby, which will apparently bind the zombie there for about 30 years, where hopefully the magic will wear off, and I'm sure it'll never haunt anyone again. It will. And this is actually one of my favorite moments here. All right, Scrooge arrives on Wall Street just after the Great Crash, and he managed to corner the market on everything by paying only a penny on the dollar for hard-hit companies. I love the idea of Scrooge McDuck walking through Wall Street with a sign that says, "That's right, I'm buying," and a huge sack of cash. And he trusted no one, conducting all of his businesses using his trained cormorants as messengers, earning him the title of Birdman of Wall Street, which is great. They didn't call him that because he's a duck, but because he uses birds. Think about that. Animal logic in Disney is weird. And then, after 27 years on the road, he decides to come home. And Duckburg has changed. It is now a thriving metropolis. It's all pretty much run by McDuck companies. There's McDuck Gas, McDuck Motors, McDuck Foods, McDuck Hotels, McDuck Ink, McDuck Paper, McDuck Widgets, McDuck Tires, McDuck Oil, McDuck Electric. The man has cornered the market of Duckburg. It's later revealed in the story, A Little Something Special, that Scrooge McDuck owns 99.9% of the land and businesses of Duckburg. I'm not even sure if that's legal, but he does. But it's also interesting to note that Scrooge has gotten a bit worse. Like, he's no longer the dishonest, cruel person he was in Africa. He's not that person anymore, but he's become cold and hard. He does not care anymore about the pomp and circumstance here. He's not impressed by the fact that all of Duckburg has come to meet him. Care that the mayor is offering him a key to the city. As he responds, "I already own all the locks." And he comes to his money bin to see a bunch of panhandlers out there. And it's not people who, say like, help me, I'm hungry, like, oh, I haven't eaten in a while. The people with signs going, "The world owes me a living. Help, haven't eaten since lunch. Gimme, aid to the lazy." And there would be a part of Scrooge a long time ago, who shined shoes for 5 pence. He would have loved to help them, but no, he's a different person now. He's become jaded. He's become cold. He sort of has a distaste for his fellow man. And he's got a certain laser focus now, and we see this even more as when he walks into his office and is greeted by his family. Hortense, Matilda, his brother-in-law Quackmore, and his entire office staff have put a party for him, and he doesn't pay any attention to them. Matilda's so happy that he's home. Hortense is like, we decided to let bygones be bygones and come see you, and she's introducing her children, Della and Donald, but Scrooge doesn't pay any attention to. He just looks to Quackfire. He's like, you know what? I want booby traps installed around the bin, all right? The entire property is full of panhandlers and all these freeloaders. And Mr. Quackfire's like, but we have a surprise. You're like, look, I don't care, all right? I want a complete audit of all the money in the bin on my desk in 10 minutes. And he just closes the door. And fortunately, because Hortense is Donald Duck's mother, we know she's not going to take that lying down. And she points out, who do you think you are? We haven't seen or heard from you in 23 years. Where do you get off? And Scrooge just fires back that, you know what? You didn't grow up when I left home at 13 to support the lot of you. if you don't like what a hard life has made out of me, you can just get out. And they do. They just get out. And it's a moment when I think cooler heads don't get a chance to prevail, when two equally stubborn people are arguing. And once again, you can see Matilda is very set on, wanting to patch this up. But she's been pushed out. I don't know why I keep mentioning Matilda. I just like Matilda. And then we get Scrooge and Donald's first interaction with each other, where, Donald just walks up, kicks his uncle in the butt, and runs off. And Scrooge is like, you know what? Relatives, I don't need them. Scrooge McDuck doesn't need anybody. And in one moment, as he's sitting down, he's remembering his childhood. He's remembering his family. And quickly he goes and runs off to get them. But then he sees the actual surprise that was waiting for him. He has done it. He has become the richest man in the world. And that one thought, that one bit of news has pushed anything else out of his mind. He's finally done it, and all he can think about is how happy he is to achieve his dream. Comic ends with Matilda pointing out that Scrooge McDuck once had everything. Now all he has is money, and all that money can buy. As we hear Scrooge yelling, "I'm the richest man in the world, me, bwahahaha." What is the Empire Builder of Calisota, if not an amazing view into character? At least from my experience, like all the interesting world building stuff, I think is great. Seeing Scrooge globetrot around the world is great. But what we're seeing is sort of the culmination of Scrooge's life, which is sort of what every issue in this series has been. Seeing Scrooge in Last of the Clan McDuck and, Mash of the Mississippi, those are two different characters, one that is built off the one that came before him. And then we see him in Buckaroo the Badlands, and the Invader of Copper Hill, and the new Laird of Castle McDuck, Terror of the Transvaal, the Dreamtime Duck of the Never Never, King of the Klondike, Billionaire of Dismal Downs, Invader of Fort Duckburg, and now here. You can look at this entire thing and see exactly, or at least understand exactly how Scrooge got to this point. And that's where the real beauty of this series is. And I love this story for it. And we're not even done yet. Oh no. What's coming next month will be amazing. Just because of exactly what happens. And what I like to call is sort of the beginning of the Duck universe, as I think most people know it. But anyway, with that in mind, let's bring this video to close here. If you're new to the Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out some other videos on the channel. It really helps, and I will catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching, and may your fandom serve you well.